Hello, this is Todd Luck, and this is a review of Masters of the Universe Masterverse #1. This is a 4-issue anthology miniseries by Dark Horse Comics that has different versions of Masters of the Universe in it. So you may notice that the miniseries is called Masterverse. And if you walk into your local Walmart or Target, you may see figures on a shelf called Masterverse. And so these are based on different versions of Masters of the Universe. For instance, this is Hordak, based on his appearance in the She-Ra Princess of Power cartoon by Filmation back in the 80s. But they have other versions of Masters of the Universe as well. So this is a figure based on Masters of the Universe Revelation, which was the recent animated series that was on Netflix. And they have other figures based on what's called New Eternia, which is new versions of He-Man and Skeletor and other figures that are based on concept art. So these look like He-Man and Skeletor, but they're a little bit different, right? So is this comic an adaptation of that toy line? Not really, but it does have a lot of the characters who have gotten figures in the Masterverse line. And so speaking of characters, why don't we talk about this frickin' gorgeous cover, man? I love the art style, I love the colors, I love the composition. Now, this isn't necessarily representative of what we're going to get in the first issue. It's more about what we're going to get in the miniseries overall. And so to break it down, this is a new version of Zodak who is in the framing sequence throughout the miniseries. And up here we have He-Man from Masters of the Universe Revelation. In the opposite corner, we get Skeletor from Masters of the Universe Revelation, voiced by Mark Hamill, smells like pine, with the rest of his minions. In this corner, we do get New Eternia He-Man, that new version that we've seen in the Masterverse figures. He will be appearing later, as will the Netflix version of He-Man. This is from the other Netflix animated series, the one that CG aimed at younger children, called He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, that ran 3 seasons. He is not in this issue, but he will be showing up in the last issue if that's what you're looking forward to. He will be coming. So this miniseries is written by Tim Seeley, who did some fantastic work at the end of DC Comics run of Masters of the Universe, including this amazing miniseries He-Man and the Masters of the Multiverse, which dealt with all these different versions of Masters of the Universe, and he brings the same kind of magic to this anthology. So the issue opens with this framing sequence, which is kind of emblematic of the miniseries. The artwork is good but uneven. Like, for instance, here we can tell that this artist is extremely talented, renders his characters very well, but the panels are just too small. And like, for instance, here, it took me a while to make out that He-Man was punching Skeletor because Skeletor was so small here and his color blends in with the mountains around him. That's kind of the color's fault there. But, we can barely make out his minions. They're so small. It's just a little too compressed, and that's something that we'll see throughout the different stories in here, that the artwork is great but a little uneven, and the story is great but a little bit compressed. So the first page shows the first battle between this version of He-Man and Skeletor and him transforming back into Adam. Now this looks like Revelation He-Man, but I wouldn't take this too literally. I don't think, if they ever do a flashback to a scene like this in the next season, which is going to be called Revolution, that they'd be bound by this at all. I would just assume that this is a version of He-Man that's just similar to what we see in Revelation. And so on the second page, Sorceress goes into Grayskull and has this conversation with Zodak, who is a cosmic enforcer trying to keep the balance in the universe. And he's concerned about giving He-Man all that power, right? Sorceress gives He-Man power to make him the most powerful man in the universe so he can defend Castle Grayskull. And Zodak's a little worried about that. So the premise of the miniseries is it's a series of short stories where Sorceress is showing him different versions of He-Man to try to make Zodak feel better about it. And by the way, this is a new version of Zodak. It could be possible that it's based on concept art for the next season of Revelation, which again is going to be called Revolution. But I wouldn't expect that. I would think that they're not going to be bound by this if Zodak did show up in Revolution. Framing sequences to justify the short stories in anthologies have become very, very common in comics. I don't think they're really necessary, and rarely do the short stories entirely line up with the premise of the framing sequence, but it's fine here. The first story is more horror-oriented, and it's drawn by Kelly Jones, who has this very dark, shadowy art style. Kelly Jones is probably best known for his covers on the Nightfall storyline in Batman back in the 90s when Bane broke Batman. Jones's style can be a little bit of a mixed bag for me. For instance, this is not necessarily my favorite rendition of Skeletor and his minions. But then it gets into the darker, more horror-oriented stuff on the next page, and Jones's artwork kicks into high gear for the rest of the story, and I think looks really cool. It's a different version of Masters Universe where Prince Adam turns into something far more scary than He-Man, but it's really cool. You know, he's chased around by all these kind of scary monsters, including some characters that are going to really surprise you. And it was just a story that really floored me as an old-time fan to read it and see some characters I never thought I would see in a comic book. But even if you're a new reader, I think everything is going to make sense for you. It's just that if you are a experienced fan who knows this franchise inside and out, you're going to see some references in there that are going to be really, really cool. That's basically what Tim Seeley does when he does Masters Universe. He makes it accessible to new readers, but also puts in a lot of stuff that fans like me appreciate. And that goes true for the next story, which is the complete opposite and is a parody story of He-Man's origin drawn by Sergio Aragonés. Sergio Aragonés is best known for his work on his creator-owned series, Gru. At times his artwork is a little sketchier than I'm used to, but for the most part I think it's cool looking, and it's just really cool to see a parody of He-Man done with this art style. And I think Seeley knocks it out of the ballpark with the story. It is extremely funny and a very well done parody. And so the version of He-Man in this parody is actually from the original 4 mini comics that shipped with the first figures in the line. And so this is a different version of He-Man. He's not Prince Adam. There's no kingdom to protect. King Randor doesn't exist. Skeletor is a skull-faced demon from another dimension. But it's really cool to see someone kind of reach back and make fun of this version of the character. My only complaint story-wise is that both of these stories are too brief. They both could have easily had at least an issue to themselves. Instead, they're less than 10 pages. But the story that we do get is very good. I just really enjoyed both of them and wish they were longer. And one note when you get to that final page with the framing sequence, this appears to be a teaser for next issue, and maybe it was intended to be, but not all of this stuff will appear next issue, right? According to solicitation, Jitsu will appear in next issue, so this is probably will happen. However, the CG version of He-Man and Masters Universe will not show up until issue 4. I suspect that the anthology nature of it, the short stories that appear in each issue, are kind of arbitrary, and were basically just based on who got their stuff done first. So, you know, we may see some things like this where they seem to tease something for next issue and it turns out to be a different story. If you are a Masters of the Universe fan, you have to pick this up. This is great, great stuff. If you're a new reader, I think you're going to get a story that you can follow that's entertaining and looks nice. Now, it's not necessarily the best way to pick up Masters of the Universe, though, because none of these short stories are probably going to represent what a normal He-Man story is like. But if you become interested in that, this is what I recommend picking up. This is He-Man and the Masters of the Universe mini comic collection. Big, thick book from Dark Horse. This collects most of your mini comics, including those first four that second story was parodying, but it contains so much more. This is mini comics based on just about every major version of He-Man that's ever existed. Great way to orient yourself, plus they are very good comics. This is a masterclass in how to effectively tell stories in a very concise way. So again, I highly recommend picking up Masterverse. The first issue is out right now, and so it's going to be a 4-issue mini-series. Go get it, guys. All right, like and subscribe for more videos, and until next time, good journey.